So I had high expectations. I thought there were going to be like major changes made. And then there was like a new logo and then a proclamation of things that I was like, okay, well, yeah. So like I kind of already knew all that. You know what I mean? Like the proclamation was like, they're like, this is only the sixth proclamation we've ever done. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But like, that's kind of Joseph Smith history too, right? I mean,
let's talk about that. Talking about the proclamations. Now, first of all, he said this was the sixth. Do we know what the other ones are? Do the official? I'm serious.
No, they're still hidden in the ground with the lost plates.
No, I'm saying, common knowledge? Do we know? It's just like all the essays. I know they're there, but I don't know what they all are. The official declarations in the DNC, are those two of them?
Maybe.
Probably.
I think so.
The proclamation on the family, the
you can get them.
Living Christ, are those?
You can go online and get them. Yeah.
I think the Living Christ is one of them, but I don't know all of them because I'm not good at this. So
as soon as he said that, I'm like, well, what are they? I was like curious. So
facsimile 1 and 2. No.
You can go and if you go on do a search online, you can get them. They used to be a part of the Gospel Library too back in the day. Do you remember that?
No.
It was called, or not Gospel Library. It wasn't put out by the church. It was like these DVD or CD-ROMs you could buy, or DVDs. I can't remember which one it was, that had like all of the church's works on them. This was like before.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
everything about. Online. So that was the last time I read them, was when they had that.
So I guess
go ahead. So you were saying you didn't feel like that was relevant.
I didn't think not that it was relevant. I guess I just thought that like. So
before you finish your thought, here's what they are: the proclamation of the first presidency for the saints to be scattered abroad in 1841, the proclamation of the 12 apostles in 1845, the proclamation of the first presidency in 1865. Proclamation of the first presidency according to this is just who did them, but not what they are. And then the proclamation to the world on the family, that was the fifth one. So this was the sixth.
Yeah.
I gotta read my book. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I guess when the proclamation came out, I mean, the proclamation to the world of the family, I felt was a very big deal because it was establishing in a time where, this whole time with regard to what divorces and same-gender marriage and all these things that were starting to come up, and came out with this proclamation to the world.
But a decade before, when that came out, that stuff was like not really talked about. It wasn't heard of. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't like a huge.
It was starting. No, that's not. Well, I live in California, where it was starting. Okay. So it was already being talked about in the 90s, and
right, but it wasn't as hot a topic as it is.
That's true.
And what people don't remember is before Proposition 8, which was the one that started the Supreme Court thing and changed everything into where gay marriage is legal everywhere.
Right.
In 2000, there was Proc 22, which was just it was just legislation to say that only marriage between a man and woman was legal in California, and it was not a constitutional amendment. So this was something that had been going on in California for quite a while. So I didn't feel though that like, so the only proclamation that I've ever been alive for was that, which was a big deal because it was announcing to the world that yes, we are still traditional family values, all these things. Whereas this time it was kind of like, okay, this is stuff that we all kind of already know.
So right, but I'm with Tim because I feel like, and who knows, but I feel like the recent, I mean, the proclamation, the reestablishment of the name of the church and the logo, all those are centered around making sure people understand that we're Christian and our strong belief in Christ. It makes me wonder, what's going to happen in the future. Is that going to be challenged or I don't know.
The first paragraph of the proclamation talking about the restoration through Joseph Smith is all about the Savior. I thought that was the first thing he started talking about was Christ. I thought that was very relevant. And the last line, if I remember.
Yeah, it's very Christ-centered.
Yeah. But I think though, like things that are in the proclamation, like being gender specific, how that's ordained of God, the roles that are associated with those genders, like that kind of stuff. Even in California, you can't tell me back then in the 90s that was like a hot issue where people, like Glenn said, where if you mention that and homosexuality or women being in the home, all that, whatever topic or conversation was, you didn't have people wanting to persecute or crucify you over it. Where now, if you suggest that someone is born into a certain sex and that's all it is, it's unheard of.
Well, it wasn't as national, but California has always been, you've always had the counterculture and
90s. Which I say Lance was in California on his mission during late 90s. Was it like that for you as a missionary?
Yeah, I mean, there was homosexuality.
Of course.
There was well, I mean, to do the gender thing, you had to go to certain areas, but there were still lots of like gender issues and stuff like that.
You remember
There always has been, but so I get what Josh is saying, like,
right.
But it was never like as hot a topic in the national press as it is now.
And 10 years from now, this may be just as big of a hot topic where people are like, if the Mormons got rid of Joseph Smith and all that story, all that garbage, and all this stuff coming out on the YouTube or on the media where everyone's like, oh, here's the story, how he read it out of a hat and all that stuff, all these little facts about the history of the church, and there was like, see, he's a horrible, corrupt person. This declaration might be so much of a big deal 10 years from now, the more and more people get like confused with a lot of that kind of stuff.
So that's actually a good point. And I would also say that that I guess, and now this is kind of, I guess our conversation is kind of turning my perspective, I suppose, because in that first, I mean, the proclamation of the world and the family was, even then, I remember it being somewhat, at least in California, being a hot button issue. So not as much as it is, not as much as it is now, but it was already
around here. It was nothing. It was nothing.
I know that, but you're in Utah.
Yeah,
I mean, here in California, I mean, I remember freshman year in high school, 1995, we had kids who were openly gay in school, and it was, it was a hot button issue at the time. You know what I mean? It's actually, in my opinion, I think it's less of a hot button issue now because it's so accepted here
in California. Yeah, for sure.
So, I agree. But I think that's interesting, the proclamation coming out now, because I've had a lot of conversations lately with a lot of people who have left the church, or who are wavering in their testimony of the church. And I think that I would say the vast majority of them who are having those issues, it stems around church history and Joseph Smith. Yeah. So I think that is probably pretty relevant, because I'm sure, our generation in particular, members are leaving in high numbers.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Because of the issues with Joseph Smith. And so the church is kind of doubling down on it.
And all those essays that are that the church has put out, that's only been the last like 4 or 5 years that they've been like, look, here's the concerns that are coming out because we're in a world of technology and information, and everyone knows everything, and now everything's available at everyone's fingertips. Fine, let's address and mention what some of these are. Here's some context for what you're reading about, and hopefully a little explanation. I think you're right. Sorry. All right. So I think time will tell. I think this may be just as big of a deal as the family is. I think it was really cool. What about him reading it in the sacred grove? Was that cool, or was that kind of distracting?
I never understood people's obsession with a lot of those church history places, but I don't know, because I've never been to anything outside of Utah. The only place I've ever gone to is Adaman, but the reason I went there wasn't for history. You know what I'm saying? So to me, the sacred grove, I don't know, I always imagine me going there and thinking, this is just a forest, dude.
Well,
I don't know. You're trying to convince me that that's holy ground. I mean, Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if I went there and it wasn't necessarily special to me, but
So I would say that, I mean, I would put, and I mean, this may be, I don't know, it'd be as significant, but I would say if you believe that that God the Father and Jesus Christ appeared to Joseph Smith in the Sacred Grove, I would say that would be right up there with areas of Jerusalem, right? I mean, like Garden of Gethsemane,
like
Sacred Tomb, like all of those things. The Sacred Grove would be right up there if you believe that, right? I mean,
right. Well, and I guess that's the difference. Like for me, it's just a place. It's the spirit you feel that's important, not the place you're at, I guess I would say, because I did go to Nauvoo, and I actually didn't feel like Nauvoo was nearly as special a place to me as Adamandayaman was, because Nauvoo is where we went when we got kicked out of the places where we wanted to be.
Well, I know Lance doesn't have any special feelings when he walks around Temple Square. He's made that very clear.
Oh, but I remember having them when I wasn't there every day.
Before you worked there.
So yeah, I can understand.
The Temple Square was just like, that was like going to the temple. It was like the most amazing feeling experience. It was so awesome. Anyway, I'm excited. I like the proclamation. I can't wait to get it hung on my wall just like the other one. But now they finally did that. That's the thing. I finally hung my proclamation in the Living Christ here in my study area, and then they put out a new one, and I don't have a matching frame for it, so now I got to start all over.